lumbering quality. That's me. I make it lumbering, like the pace. Lumbering is a lumbering sort of pace. It's sort of like asks you.
Well, let's try that.
Makes
Ready?
like,
From the top. What's lumbering?
it's sort of plodding
So
along.
start with plodding.
All right, you ready?
Mendel, it's okay if you are aware, but are you aware that everybody's on the thumbnail except for you? You're on the big screen.
That's what's it called? It's you change your thing to from speaker view to gallery view.
Gallery view? Where? Oh, I see. Gallery view. Let's try that. Okay, I see. Yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah. So are we ready to actually go into the, hey kids, what time it is, or we got more practice first?
Go for it, baby.
Okay. Hey kids, what time is it?
Time for Gezintahait Street.
It's time for Gezintahait Street. You guys want to go in with a niggin, or that was it? We just did a niggin. Now we'll start with the story. Does that make sense?
Story. Do the
Okay,
story.
give me a Elif.
Yeah, do the story. I want to hear the story.
Okay, the story tonight, by the way, tonight is the anniversary of when the Mittler Rebbe was released from prison. So the story tonight
By
is
the way,
the story, huh?
We did that niggin, Podo Bisholim.
Yeah,
We know that the Alter Rebbe, when he was released, it came out on the day that the Tehillim was full. But if you look, it's also that it comes in the Tehillim for the 10th day
correct.
of the same Tehillim. That
What Gimel Elif just said, he got cut off in the middle by the Wi-Fi, was that when the Alter Rebbe said the words of the Tehillim, Podo B'Shalom Nafshi, was the 19th day of the month, and that was the Tehillim for the 19th day. But when the Mittler Rebbe got released, it was the 10th day, because he was saying it according to the days of the week, and it came out on that day or the other way around. But they both said the same thing when they heard about the release, that my soul is released in Sholom, completely released in an easy and a peaceful way. So today, being the Mittler Rebbe's day, we're going to tell a story about a dream that the Mittler Rebbe had when his father was still the Rebbe. I don't know if he was a teenager, but he certainly had the brain of an adult. Once, the Mittler Rebbe dreamed of a river with a board floating across the surface of the river. And the Maggid of Medrash was standing on the board, but it was unstable. Then the Alter Rebbe stood on the board, and it stabilized. The dream itself is much more complicated and more beautiful, but I'm just telling you the details that we need to understand what we can learn from the story. The Mittler Rebbe told the dream to his father, the Alter Rebbe, who said that the river represented a stream of people returning to their Jewish roots, called Bali Chuvas. The Alter Rebbe then told his son, 25 years ago, I heard a parable from my Rebbe, the Maggid of Medrash. He said there was a king who had two sons. One stayed with the king and lived an exemplary life. The other left the kingdom of his father, staying very far away in distance and behavior. When the lost son finally returned, the king's love for the returned son was greater than for the one who had remained at home, the good boy. The lost son symbolizes a Baal Tshuva, one who returns. And the son who remained with the king symbolizes a righteous one, who didn't have to return because he always stayed with the king. This teaching, said the Alter Rebbe, made me want to bring every Jew back to his father in heaven. For close to 5 years, I traveled from town to town, sometime revealed as myself and sometime in disguise, to arouse Jews to return to their father. Years later, the Mittler Rebbe related this story to the next Rebbe, to the Tzemach Tzedek, and he told him, at first, my father's service was to make Baal Tshuvas, returnees, and even after he became Rebbe, he continued this effort. And anyone who saw him just once woke up the next day a new person. And then he added, and this power he gave to the one that he wanted to give it to. Eventually, the Tzemach Tzedek, when he was the Rebbe, told the story to the Rebbe Marash, his son who would become Rebbe. And he said, and he gave the power to make returnees, Baalei Tshuvos, to whom he wished. And then the Tzemach Tzedek added, in this story, one will find the sincere self-sacrifice, the Mesiras Nefesh of Hasidim, which comes to them as their inheritance. When the Rebbe Marash passed the story to the Rebbe Rashav, he said, with sincere Mesiras Nefesh, giving away of yourself, even a born chassid can revive the dead. The Rebbe Rashav shared the story with the previous Rebbe, and referring to a born chassid, he said, what a new chassid receives as assistance from above can't be compared to the heavenly assistance given to one who toils in the godly service, who works to become a better chassid. There are two kinds of chassidim. One just happens to be born to a Hasidic family, and one of them works on himself to perfect himself through the service of Hasidus. And you can't compare the assistance that Hashem gives one to the other. Nevertheless, even a born chassid who has not toiled in service can revive the dead through his Mesiras Nefesh for giving himself away when he helps another Jew. How? He helps another Jew to put on tefillin. When a Jew wears tefillin, the head and the heart, right? There's one tefillin on the head and one tefillin on the arm next to the heart. The head and the heart and the limbs of the body are healthy. If he doesn't wear tefillin, Has v'shalom, God forbid, his head and his heart and all the limbs of his body can become ill, to the point where he can fall and become a primary source of uncleanliness. That's what a dead body is, a primary source of uncleanliness. Spiritual death. The point is, everyone can make returnees, can make Baal Tshuvos, if only they do it with Mesiras Nefesh, by giving themselves away. in a Hasidic and a sincere way. And what is a sincere way? Like the sages say, words from the heart penetrate the heart of the listener and accomplish their intent. So that's a sincere way. And what's a Hasidic way? Means to forgo one's own needs to do good for another person. Like it's known, a Chassid burns his nails to ensure no one is injured, even though he himself might get injured. Our Rebbe asks, what's the connection between tefillin and making a new returnee about tshuva? An encapsulated version of the answer is that when a person first becomes aware of his good fortune and responsibility to serve Hashem, and he becomes aware either due to another Jew who turns him on, or his own inner voice, he immediately rationalizes. He said, this path is not for me. And the reason is because the desires of his heart overwhelm his intelligence. Like our sages teach, a person does not sin unless a spirit of folly enters him. Therefore, the first step in helping the person to do tshuva is having him put on tefillin. The arm tefillin is placed across from the heart where temptation resides. It binds the arm, which represents action, to the heart with a band of holiness. Similarly, the head tefillin encompasses intellect with a band of holiness, allowing its true voice to be heeded, allowing the true voice of the intellect to be listened to by this person. Now, when this Jew returns to Hashem, he reveals his love even more. Hashem reveals his love to this guy even more than to a completely righteous person. Like it says in the place where about tshuva, where a returnee stands, a complete righteous one cannot stand. Furthermore, the Rebbe says, the king, who's Hashem, recognizes his responsibility to thank the one who returned his son. The guy who gives himself away to help another Jew to put on tefillin, Hashem recognizes he has the responsibility to thank that one. And he gives him anything he requires from his full, open, wide, and holy hand. We want Mashiach now. You guys have a tune you want to share with us?
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Give me an E major. Here we go. Yelchom Mechayil, Elchayil, Yelchom Mechayil, Elchayil, Yelchom Mechayil, Elchayil, Elchayil. Yehiroe, Yelchom Mechayil, Yelchom Mechayil, Elchayil, Yelchom Mechayil, Elchayil, Elchayil. Yehiroe, Yehiroe, Hey, ay, 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 ay,
Labe, awesome, baby. Awesome. In our Parsha tonight, it tells an incredible story about our forefather Yaakov. It says, Yaakov went out from Beersheba, that's where he lived with his parents, and he had to run away because his brother, the gangster, Esau, wanted to kill him. And he goes out of Beersheba to run away to Haran, where his mother's family lived. And there in Haran, he would be able to accomplish his mission in life, mainly to find the wife and be fruitful and multiply and cause the tribes to be born. On the way there, he reaches a certain place where the sun sets quickly in a wondrous, untimely fashion. He gathers stones from the place to make a kind of corral to protect himself from dangerous animals. While he's sleeping, he has a dream of a ladder whose feet are on the ground and whose apex is in the heavens. And on that ladder there are angels ascending and descending up and down. And on top, the very top of the ladder, Hashem is standing over the whole thing, and he speaks to Yaakov. He tells him, don't be afraid. You will acquire the land on which you are laying for your descendants, and your descendants will be more numerous or as numerous as the grains of sand on a beach. And Hashem says, I will be with you. You don't have to be scared. Yaakov then wakes from his dream, and he realizes this place where he had been sleeping was a place of godly emanation. It was really the place of the Holy of Holies in Jerusalem. It was the place where Adam, the first man, was created. And it was the place where Abraham brought Yitzhak as a sacrifice on an altar. And at that point, Yaakov makes a vow, makes an oath to Hashem that if Hashem gives him clothes to wear and food to eat and returns him in peace to his father's house, then Hashem will be his God. He makes an oath to Hashem that Hashem will be his God. And when will Hashem be his God? And when will this oath take effect? When Hashem gives him food and clothing and is with him and returns him to his father's house. And if that's not enough, it has to be that he's returned to his father's house in peace. But really, Hashem is always Yaakov's God. What does he have to make this whole oath? He said, if you do all these things I want, then you'll be my God. No, Hashem was always Yaakov's God. He's everybody's God. So what's the deal with this oath? And you'll be my God only after you return me in peace to my father's house. And then afterwards, if that's not wondrous enough, he stands up the stone that had miraculously been fused into one stone of the stones he has slept inside of to protect them from the wild animals. They came together and fused in one stone, and he stood up that stone. He poured oil on it, and he says, this stone is the house of Hashem. How does a stone become a house for Hashem? Stay tuned to find out how a simple inanimate stone can become a house for God. Torah is a contemporary teaching and guide for each one of us in our day-to-day lives. It's not just an amazing, inscrutable story from our grandfathers in ancient times, like this story seems to be. So how is this story and its teaching explained in a comprehensible way so that we can use it practically in our service of Hashem? Additionally, Torah is not only a teaching, but it gives us strength and power to accomplish our individual mission in the world. Since Yaakov's oath came after he went out from Beersheba, then it's obvious he wanted to be returned to his father's house. But what teaching and strength do we receive from this oath of Yaakov? From the story of Yaakov and his need to return in peace to his father's house. And this story is the direct antecedent and sign for us that we have the same need and desire. What happens to the forefathers is a sign for us. And we can accomplish revealing our true soul self by following the path of our father Jacob. His return to his father's house is connected to our own going out and return to our father's house. So let's understand first where Yaakov went out from. He went out from Beersheba, the well of the seven. And what is the global meaning of this story that Yaakov went out from the well of the seven? What is the spiritual meaning that will have a practical application for us? Beersheba, the well of the seven, had that name when Isaac redug the well of Abraham, and it was the seventh well that he redug, and it was called the well of the seven. Beersheba means well of the seven. And that's where Yaakov leaves from. This well indicates the level of Bina. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen here. Hang on. Okay, that well indicates this hay of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the level of Bina. You see how the hay is a long, wide letter. It is the explanation of the Yud, of the idea itself, of the godly revelation of Chachma, and it's how it's explained in a long, wide way. And from that Bina, the seven emotional attributes, which is the Vav and the Hey, become revealed. So those seven which come out from Bina are encompassed by Yaakov. He encompasses all of those attributes. Let's see if I can get a thing up on the screen here. Hang on. Yeah. No, that ain't it. Let's see if we can get it up here. This is it. Let's see. Yeah. See, this shows a diagrammatic drawing of the anthropomorphic man. You see here, you have Kesser. This is the crown, which encompasses the level of the godly desire for all of the other attributes. And then you have here on the right side Chachma, which will be symbolized by that Yud, and then you have Bina, which is symbolized by the Hey. And from that Chachma and Bina is going to be born out the emotional attributes, which are all included of Chesed, which means kindness, and Gevurah, which means strict judgment. And they are combined by the middle line, which is Tiferes. The Chesed, the kindness, is symbolized by Abraham, and the Gevurah, the strictness, is symbolized by Yitzhak. And the Tiferes, the middle bolt, which combines them and brings them into truth and beauty, is the level of Yaakov. So Yaakov encompasses all of the seven attributes. So that's what it said. He went out from the well of the seven. And the well is the level of Bina. And from that Bina is born out those seven attributes, which the main bolt and the existence of those attributes is accomplished by Yaakov in this middle bolt called Tiferes, called beauty. as it's explained, we said that today is the time when the Mittler Rebbe got out of jail in Russia. And what he was in jail for was revolution against the imperial crown, against the Tsar. Because it's taught in Kabbalah that Malchus, which is royalty, is the lowest level of all the spheres. See, Malchus is royalty and it's the lowest level. So when the Tsar heard that, he said, this guy wants to say that I'm in the lowest level. So the Mittler Rebbe wrote a letter to him explaining how this whole deal works. And he explained that chesed, kindness by itself, is not good. Now, this is my metaphor. Like you see, when a child is given too much, he becomes a spoiled child. And gevura, judgment itself, is not enough. Strictness is not enough. It could be even more damaging than kindness. What's needed? This level of beauty, which is called teferis, this middle boat, which combines the kindness and the strictness. And that is exemplified by our father Yaakov. There are 3 lines here. You see, Chochmah, Chesed, and Netzach is the right line. Bina, Gevura, and Hod is the left line. And Keser, Teferis, and Yesod is the middle line. And the level of royalty, Malchus, is underneath the middle line. And it's called the direct line. It follows a direct and a balanced path without inclining to the right or the left. It combines the right and the left in a beautiful combination. Like a plumb line, this is how the Mittler Rebbe explains this godly manifestation of the godly man, that middle line is like a plumb line that determines the correct approach between 2 opposites without bending too much to the right or the left. It stands equidistant from both. Yaakov has to emerge from his home, the well of the 7, which is the world of Atzilus, and descend even lower than Malchus into the created worlds, where this is a world of unity. It's one body. It's one supernal man. Yaakov has to go out from that beautiful world of unity and come into the separate worlds, which is manifest in Haran, where he has to go to his mother's family. And Haran is the absolute nadir, the absolute lowest level of creation. It's this physical world, which is bereft of any godly light and revelation. So Yaakov has to go out of the world of godly light and revelation, and he has to come all the way down to this low world where there's no godly revelation in order to accomplish his mission. And his mission is to get a wife and make children, make the tribes of Israel. Therefore, he asks Hashem for food and clothing that he needs to accomplish his mission. Physical and spiritual, the spiritual clothing being Torah and mitzvah. Therefore, he'll be able to return in peace after he accomplishes the mission to his father's house, ensuring that Hashem will be his God. Boy, we see this dynamic illustrated in Yaakov's name. We see this dynamic illustrated in Yaakov's name. I'm just going to look for another sharing thing. I don't know what they want from me. They're showing me this thing. Hang on. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine. Let's try this now. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Yaakov's name starts with a yud, like it's Yaakov. And the end of his name is Akev, which means heels. The yud represents his father's house, the level of the world of Atzilus, the spiritual clarity of the godly unity in the world of Atzilus. And the Akev, the heels, is his mission, is his journey. That's why it's heels. He has to go with his feet out of his father's house into the lowest level. But no matter how far he descends, he never loses the leadership of the Yud, the peace of his true home. And in order to accomplish the mission in such a dark place, and in the face of the immoral Laban, who he has to deal with, he needed extra help from above, even higher than the Yud of the world of Atzilus. And that's the lesson we can learn in our own service. We have the Yud, we have the godliness, we have the Jewish soul, but we have to connect to something higher in order to accomplish the mission. And that's the oath that Yaakov swore. That's why he had to swear an oath, because he had to get extra help and extra strength. And we also, our neshama swears an oath before it comes down, like it says in Tanya. It swears an oath that it will accomplish its mission. And at the time that it swears that oath, it is satiated with the power of godliness to accomplish it, so it can return the soul to its father's house in peace. Next, you want to do a nigun now? Make a break, or I keep going if you want.
No, we have a good niggin because today is because now it was Tes Kislev, now Yud Kislev. We sing the middle Rebbe's Kapelye.
Oh, Da, 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 ya, ya, ya. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's hard with music, you can't express what it accomplishes, but I assure you there's a godly message in there. Next, how does the episode of sleep and the dream fit into the story in this divine supernal saga, which is parallel to things, the journey of Yaakov and how it pertains to us? So how does this episode of sleep fit in to this epic story? The name of this parsha of the Torah is that Yaakov went out of Beersheba. He went out from the godly world of his father Yitzhak and Abraham to the outer world, all the way down to our dark world which is desolate of godly revelation. And that is parallel and symbolizes the descent of the soul, of our soul, our godly soul having to come into a body. It's up in paradise with Hashem, and it has to descend into a body. So that's like Yaakov leaving his father's house to go down to Haran. But in order to accomplish our mission of choosing out the godly sparks which fell and were hidden in the physical world, with the sin of the mixture of good and bad, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, all the way down to Haran, the physical world. But there, Jacob became rich with those sparks of holiness that he picked up there. He picked up the good sparks. And with those, he became rich in flocks of sheep and servants. And he acquired 4 wives, and almost all of the tribes, all of his children were born there. And even the evil, old, grumpy trickster Laban was somewhat turned over. After all, he became the grandfather of the tribes. And it all started with that descent of the soul. He went out from Beersheba, from the well of the 7. And we see that in Yaakov's name in Yud Akev. The Akev is the going out, and the Yud is his roots in his father's house. And when the heel descended to the outside, it was under the direction of the Yud. And what is that Yud? It's the soul's nullification to Hashem. It's called the Chachma of the soul, the wisdom of the soul. But at one point, the heel and the head needed to be on equal footing in order to reveal that which is higher than spirituality, which is symbolized by the Yud, and higher than physicality, which is symbolized by the heel, which is Hashem himself. Higher than both. And he was revealed to Yaakov in his sleep, in the dream. And in the sleep, when you're laying down, your head and your feet are on an equal level. And through the life and the teaching of Jacob, our father, each one of us receives the strength to succeed in our individual mission of the service to redeem the sparks for which we are individually responsible. To make a dwelling place, this rock will be a home for Hashem. This dead place, this inorganic place, will be a place and a home for Hashem in this world through our service. Yaakov said, this stone will be a house for Hashem. A physical inorganic stone. And stones are called letters in Sefer Yetzirah. And these are the letters of Torah and mitzvahs, which each letter of Torah and mitzvahs that we bring out into the world finally fuse into one big edifice, into this stone that he poured the oil in and said, this is the house of Hashem. To make a dwelling place down there for Hashem. Since Havaya, since Hashem brings the world into being, and Havaya is, like we showed, the Yud K Vav K, that means the name Havaya, and the Yud is the beginning of that godly name. And that's the name that brings everything into being. And that Yud indicates a continuous creative action, which enlivens the world continuously. And that Yud gives Yaakov the ability to rule over the world. That's how come he can accomplish his mission. And our service is in two levels, in Torah and mitzvahs. And they become a garment for the soul in paradise to get the light from godliness. That's what it says. You'll return me to my Father's house. And that descent of the soul down here is not to improve the soul. The soul itself is perfect. It's a piece of God. But to fix up the animal soul and the physical world. And that's why the soul goes out, why Yaakov had to go out of Beersheba from the well of the seven. Now, in explaining this saga of Yaakov and the bigger picture of how this story is a teaching for each one of us and gives each one of us the strength and power to accomplish our mission, we have not explained all the details of the descent of the soul into the world. Just a general itinerary of this epic journey. Like if I told you I took a car trip across America, I started in New York, I passed through Chicago and the Midwest, and then I stopped in Denver, and I finally made it across the Rockies to the Pacific. There's a whole bunch of details I left out. The same way, in this way, I just told you the story, there's a whole bunch of details of this journey that we haven't covered. But I do want to look at a particular level of the journey of the soul we didn't mention. And that part of the journey is indispensable to get the big picture. And what is that part of the journey? The soul travels through the sphere of Malchus. We said that Yaakov is the attributes of the world of Atzilus and goes out from Atzilus into the separate worlds. But he has to go through a certain level called Malchus, called royalty, in order to enter the created worlds so that the neshama, the soul, can perform its mission. And since Yaakov encompasses the emotional attributes, through his attribute of truth and beauty that combines all the attributes, then Malchus consists of thought and speech, which will reveal that truth and beauty to the world. So the attribute of Yaakov has to dress itself into the attribute of Malchus, the thought and speech, to be able to reveal his godly nature. Now, I understand it. There is an amazing midrash, I think it's a midrash, that says that before Yaakov went to Haran, he spent 14 years learning in the yeshiva of Shem and Eber. Shem was the son of Noah. That's why we're called Semitic, from the name Shem, because from his line the Jewish people were born. And Eber was his great-grandson. And they had a yeshiva, a secret yeshiva, where they taught Torah. And Yaakov stopped there for 14 years before he went down to Haran. And I understand that time in that yeshiva will be the acquiring of these letters of thought and speech to be able to reveal his attributes. But that's just my thinking. That's just human intelligence. Who knows if I'm right? I don't have a source for that. But let's understand it according to the way the Mittler Rebbe explained it when he wrote to the Tsar, explaining how, even though Malchus, royalty, is the lowest level, it's really an expression of the highest level. In Kabbalah, Malchus does mean the lowest level. Nevertheless, it constitutes the expression and revelation of the highest level, just like thought and speech. Reveal what's higher than them. The sphere of Malchus is positioned below the middle line, which is Yaakov, which is made up of Das, Tiferes, and Yesod. That's the middle line. And these concepts can be explained based on the wisdom of Kabbalah. This is what the Mittler Rebbe said. And he said it in the letter, and this letter is what got him out of jail. And that wisdom employs an analogy of the human form. Let's see if I can get it back up here. Yeah, I think I can. Let's try it again. Yeah, I think we're going to get it up. Yeah, the analogy of the human form, you have all the attributes of a person. There's the right line, which is wisdom, kindness, and victory, and the left line, which is bina, which means understanding, and gevura, which means judgment, and hod, which means standing your ground, basically. And then you have the middle line, which is encompassed by the crown, which is desire, and Tiferes, which is the midah of Yaakov that combines all of them, and Yesod, which is how those attributes go out to be dressed into Malchus, the level of royalty, which is like the decree of the king. But what's a decree of the king? It's only an expression of all of the king's attributes being expressed in what he wants. So the analogy of how it is in the supernal world is how it is in the person. The seichel, the intellect, is in the mind, and that's connected through the middle line. And the emotion attributes are in the heart, and that's connected through the middle line. And the attributes of action are connected to the middle line, which is how they are expressed finally through Malchus. And just as these three levels, the brain, which is connected through Das, the Chachma and Bina is connected through Das, exists in the intellect, and there they're called Chabad, and they exist in the heart, where they're called Chagas, kindness, judgment, and beauty. And that's what it says in Pirkei Avos. What is the straight path that a person should choose? Everything that is beautiful, that beautifies him, and everything that other people find beautiful. And the word they use for beautiful is this word Tiferes, the attribute of Yaakov that connects all of them. It's the intermediate and determining quantity, and it's called Tiferes. And it's connected to the level of Das, which connects the intellectual faculties. You see the straight line. It's connected through Das and Tiferes and Yesod, and finally comes to Malchus, which is the thought and speech. Therefore, an intermediary that includes the two opposite lines is this level called Tiferes, called beauty, which is the attribute of Yaakov. And that's what it says. Yaakov is a Yud, that's the intellectual factors, and an Akev. That's how it goes out through Yesod to Malchus. Similarly, just like the metaphor of a person, beautiful music has blended sounds that are composed of a sweet sound and a strong sound. For example, a harp is a sweet sound and a drum is a strong sound. And for it to be mutable music, they have to be combined in the exactly the correct way through the attribute of beauty. How about a niggin? Do we have a niggin now? What do we have? There he is. I see there's a Yiddo with a fiddle. He's getting that bow ready to go. Yay.
Ah, here we go. And now for the Holy Trilogy.
Wait, is this one I know?
Where's the starting key? With your people and the angels all sing, oh glorious King, won't you please return with your people? He made you a crown, won't you come back to town? Return with your people. Oh, Tati, our king, you know it don't mean a thing.
Boys, that was true and beautiful.
Especially beautiful.
Yes.
Cool.
Now, this concept of the middle bolt that combines the opposites into beauty is well known. How the metaphor is, it is a man, the supernal man on the throne. It's the general concept of the 10 spheros and the manner in which they emanate forth from their source in godliness. So far, we've just been talking about the 10 spheros and how they're combined by the middle line of beauty. Now we're going to see how they're emanated from their source in godliness. That will be how, like the 7 come out from the well of the 7, still in the godly unified world. The nature of this emanation is reflected in the verse. He separated from the spirit that was upon him. Hashem took some of the spirit of Moses and gave it to the elders. This refers to a smaller light being set aside and separated from a greater light. Like the light of a spark that's separated from a larger flame. A similar pattern applies with regard to the 10 spheros of the world of Atzilus, which are called sublime lights. Nevertheless, they do not, God forbid, resemble physical light, even though they're called lights. They're called lights because it means a godly energy, not because it's any kind of a light that you can imagine. You can't compare them at all to physical light. It's only an analogy. And to offer another analogy, they're like the powers of a person in the physical plane. For example, the intellect in a person's mind is a small element that derives from the essence of his soul. The essence of the soul is completely simple. There is no intelligence there. It's just a simple soul. But the light of intelligence is emanated from that simple light. It's like the light of a spark that comes off of the big light. Similarly, the attributes in the intellect and the desire and the emotions in one's heart are included in the essence of the soul, and they're completely nullified there because the soul is a simple thing. It's only a soul. But the individual powers that are going to enliven the body are emanated from that simple light. But there, how they're included in the soul, they don't have any individual existence. But when it comes to a conscious level, after they have emerged and been emanated from a state of hiddenness in the essence of the soul to a state where they have distinct, they exist as distinct individual things, a power of thought, power of feelings, and each one is an individual entity, so that one can act with his mind and emotions and manifest these attributes in action to satisfy all of his needs. And it all becomes emanated from that simple light of the soul, which does not contain any of these distinct categories. So the object of this metaphor, how it is in the supernal world, like it says, Elijah says, you are one, but not in a numerical sense. That's like the simple light of the soul. It's one, but there's no two next to it. It's only one alone. One in a simple true oneness. That's Hashem. Above the reckoning of 10 attributes entirely. Like he concludes, you are wise, but not with a known wisdom. In other words, there's no distinct wisdom there. It's just that Hashem has the power to emanate wisdom. Instead, it's like the existence of a person's wisdom, as it is included and unified with the essence of the soul, where there it has no individual existence. Similar concepts apply with regard to the attribute of kindness, the attribute of judgment, and all the other attributes. In the essence of the soul, in the essence of Hashem, these 10 attributes don't exist as distinct attributes. Just Hashem could emanate them if he wants. And Hashem emanated these 10 attributes from hiddenness to revelation to guide the world. Just like a mortal king. Don't forget, this is the Mittler Rebbe writing to the Tsar, telling him how he's not a revolutionary, how the Tsar is really the boss. He says, like a mortal king who guides his nation in a balanced path, blending the two attributes of kindness and justice as they exist within his intellect and emotions. And this blending is called truth and beauty, he tells the Tsar, for it involves an intermingling from all the opposing qualities to mingle them together in an attractive and appropriate blend as explained above. And based on the above concepts, it's possible to understand the concept of Malchus, because Malchus is the expression of this truth and beauty. And that's kingship. So even though Malchus, in Kabbalah terms, is situated below all of the other attributes, it's under that middle vector. It's the last of the 10 that emanate from the infinite light, and it receives its influence from all of the 3 lines. Nevertheless, this attribute, this royalty attribute, is the primary source of godly influence. That's how Hashem runs the world. For all the created beings and for the sublime spiritual realms, including the angels, the holy animals, in the realms of Bria and Sira and the 70 patron angels, in the world of Asiya, which all receive their vitality from the sphere of Malchus. That's the king. That's what he's telling the Tsar, and that's what he's telling us. Hashem wants to be our king. And how does he manifest his kingship? By communicating to us this truth and beauty, which is the combination of all of the attributes he's emanated. And now it becomes that Malchus becomes the influence for the 4 elements, fire, air, earth, and water, how they are blended together in the material world. In the 4 types of existence: inanimate, plants, animals, and humans. And that's how Hashem runs the world, through Malchus. And that is the expression of the truth and beauty of Yaakov, which he brings down to the world and communicates in the world, is Hashem's desire for the world to live according to the Torah and the mitzvahs. We have a niggin to go out with, or should we just have the sign off tune?
Yeah, 1 second.
Make him squeal.
1 second.
Okay, 1 second.
I just need to swap the bands.
I hear that we can hear the band.
I know, but I want you to see them. So
Okay.
here we go.
Sounds very groovy, boys.
You're groovy, Flav.
Wawa. The Wawa.
Okay, now it's just annoying. Stop it.
Pointing at me.
Stop it, Flav.
The Wawa system. Oh, we're going to plan B. Plan A, plan B.
I see more there. Okay,
Who's Carbon song?
you ready?
A little touchy feely.
Okay, go. Start it.
Hit it.
La 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 la, my la la da 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 da, my la la ya ya la 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 ya la la ya ya la 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 ya la 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 my la ya ya
Yeah. Nice one. Gezintahait, my friend. Remember, kids, Gezintahait. Nice one. Thank you very much, everybody.